Hey you, welcome back to my channel for our Plant Therapy Thursday session, where we enter the plant kingdom and explore weird and beautiful plants from around the world, from relaxing rainforest plants to sculptural desert cacti and succulents. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel for our Plant Therapy Thursday session. Today we're going to be water propagating Monstera Adansonii. So let's go ahead and get started, and we'll take our first cutting and I'll show you guys how to do that right now. We'll do our experiment, our water propagation, on the one that I already cut, but I'll just show you here, if you were going to take a fresh cutting, you're just going to look for any vine that you want to clip off of there. We can take a full cutting, so you could cut all the way down here near the soil line, or you can cut part way up the plant, but either way, it's still going to keep growing. So right here we have a node or an active growth point. So there's a leaf shooting out this way, and then on this side you can feel a little bump, and you can actually see a little bit of aerial root poking out there. And then down here we have another node, another little aerial root bump poking out, and another leaf shooting up there. So to take our cutting, we're going to cut somewhere along one of those smooth stem parts or those internodes. So it'll be between two nodes. So I like to get as many nodes on the vine as possible, so normally I will go down a little closer to the soil. Okay, so I've got my sterilized pruning shears ready to go, and you want to make sure they're sterilized so you don't transfer any bacteria or fungus or germs into the open wound of the plant when you go to make your cut. I'm going to go down a little further here, so I would probably take my cutting right here on that smooth part of the stem, that internode. So it's in between two nodes or two growth points. So I'd make my cutting right there. But we're going to go back to the table and go work with the cutting that we already have. It'll be the exact same thing. I just wanted to come over here and just show you guys what it would look like if you were going to take another cutting. So let's go back and work with our other cutting we already have. All right, you guys, so what we're going to do is take our cutting. We're going to pretend like we just cut it, but this one happens to have roots on it. So just pretend like those roots don't exist right now. So after you take your cutting, there's a couple different options that you could propagate this. You could leave the vine whole and you can propagate just the one vine. And so I had stuck this in water 1 month ago, and that's what its root system looks like now a month later. And so it actually shot out this big root first, and it was about 2 inches in 2 weeks time. It grew pretty fast. And then it started putting out all the other little roots. So we've got lots of little white hairy roots here. So that's one option. You can plant the vine exactly as is and just have one main vine that's climbing up a stake. Or we can take this and cut it into several sections and make a fuller plant. So either way would work great, but what we're going to do is the second option. So I want to make as many plant babies out of this one vine as possible. And before you start making your cuts, you want to make sure that your pruning shears are sterilized, or any blades or anything that you're working with to cut the plant, just so you don't transfer any bacteria or fungus into the open wounds of the plant. So I'm going to look for the best spot to start cutting here. So I'm going to leave all these nodes alone down here, since there's a lot of active growth happening there with the roots and everything. And I'm going to start with my first cut right up here. So I'm going to look for a node and then the second node, and I'm going to cut right in between those. Okay, so that's going to be one piece, and we are actually going to go ahead and pot this part up today since it does have roots. For now, I'm going to stick it back in the water so it doesn't get mad at me. So let's just stick this back in the water. I do not want this thing's roots drying up on me while we're doing our other cuts here. Okay, we're going to just set our little baby over there. Okay, now let's look for our next cut. So we've got a leaf here and the node. So I'm going to cut right here. I'm just going to set this right off to the side here. And then we've got another leaf here and the node right here. So I'm just going to make another cut right here. So this is really easy to propagate. Every time you see a leaf, it's going to be coming out of a node. And we'll just make our cut just above that. And normally I just cut right in the middle of that internode, that smooth part of the stem. And you can always trim them up a little shorter later on if you want. Okay, so after you get done cutting up your vine, your cuttings are going to look something like this, where you have one leaf and one node, or at least one node. If you have two, that's even better because you're going to have even more roots. But at least one node on each cutting. So when we're putting our cuttings in the water, we want the nodes to be underwater. So we want those to be submerged, because that's where the roots are going to grow out of. So we're just going to stick all of our cuttings in the water, making sure our nodes are underwater. I think I'm going to leave that jar like that, and I've got this little container here that I'm using too. It's just a little bit smaller for these itty bitty guys. Okay, so once you have your cuttings in the water, then you just wait, and normally in about 2 weeks, you will start seeing roots popping out of the nodes. And so we've got our little itty bitty babies there. Oh, those are cute. Look at those little things. Those are cute. So I'm gonna keep an eye on these and see how these do. Really interested to see. Now I haven't propagated nodes and leaves that are this small, but I'm interested to see how these do. Now when you're waiting for your brand new cuttings to propagate, you wanna keep these stored away from direct sunlight. So keep them in indirect light. You can have them in bright indirect light or bright shade, but just no direct sunlight. So like if you were to have these on a windowsill and the sun started to come through the window, it could magnify through the glass jar and start burning any new little baby roots that are starting to form. Okay, now we get to pot up our little baby that already has the roots, because I don't want to leave this in the water for any longer. It's already been in here for a month, so it is ready to pot up. Actually, it was ready a couple of weeks ago to get potted up. So you only have to really wait until the roots are like 1 inch long, and then you can pot them right into the soil. So the recipe I'm using in this video for our cutting is the same recipe that I potted up the mother plant in the last video. So we have our moisture retaining ingredients like the aged forest products and some of the compost and peat mixture in the potting soil, and then our sphagnum moss for some extra pockets of moisture. And then we have our pumice and cocoa chips for aeration. So we've got a nice light fluffy mix, but it still has a lot of moisture retaining ingredients too. All right, let's grab our cutting. And I'm gonna get those roots down in its new pot gently. You know what, let's take a little more soil out. I want those roots to get a little bit lower in the soil. So I'm planting this right in the middle. Do some backfill. And we are gonna have those other cuttings coming into the same pot too. So they're gonna fill it out. But right now we're just gonna have this one little sprig, one little cutting in here. So now that we've transplanted our cutting into soil, it's gonna go through a little bit of a shock period since it was just in pure water and it's going into dry soil. So what we wanna do to help ease that transition is to keep the soil consistently moist. So we want it to be moist every day until it starts to develop soil roots, because right now it just has water roots. And so after we get this potted up, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a drink of water right now. I'm gonna soak the pot. I want to soak all of that soil, so I'm watering until there's water running through the bottom of the pot. So until this gets established in the soil, I'm probably going to be soaking the pot about 3 times a week, I'd say. All right, good morning guys. I figured it'd be a good day to do an update on the cuttings because I actually forgot all about them. They have been sitting over here on top of our trunk over here, and it's in indirect light, so it doesn't get any sunlight over there. But I actually just realized this morning that I have not looked at these and I have no idea what's going on or if they're even still alive or what's happening over here. So let's just take a look and see how we're doing. We have roots. Oh, whoa, look at those. Okay, very nice, very nice. Oh, that one's got roots too on that side, okay. Oh, we all have roots going. All right, hopefully you'll be able to see this little nub here, that brown part there. That was the beginning of an aerial root originally, and now you can see that it has changed into a white water root. It's amazing how adaptive these are and how they can just change the type of roots that they're growing just like that. That one shot out a couple of roots there. So basically it's been about 1.5 weeks. And then we have our baby leaves down here in the little container. Oh, that one's got a good, decent sized root on it for being such a small leaf. Now these, when you have little tiny cuttings like these and the leaves are super tiny, like there's barely anything on there, they're not going to produce as much energy. So it's going to be not as robust. The root system that it puts out is not going to be as robust as like one that has more power, a bigger leaf with more energy to put into building the roots. So the water still looks pretty clean and clear, but I like to refresh it. So normally I'll do that once a week, and since it's over a week now, I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, I'll go ahead and dump out this water and wash the jars, and then we'll refill it and put the little babies back in there and give them a little more time. So I just want to make sure all the nodes are covered. Let's go up a tiny bit more. Okay, let's put these back where they were. Actually, let's feel this a little bit. Oh yeah, it does feel like, okay, it feels like the roots have taken. So I'm gonna give this a water. So I've got the mother plant up here too, I'm watering. So we're watering her little babies. All right guys, we're back. Let's check in on the cuttings. It's been about 2.5 weeks and I changed the water just that one time, and then I did notice that some of the water had evaporated. So a couple of times I did add a little bit of rainwater, and so I didn't actually change the water, I just sprayed some in with my little sprayer. I also noticed that a few of these, actually let's see, 1, 2, and we got some of these babies. There's a few of them in here that are producing new leaf shoots out of the node too, right where the roots are. Okay, so all 4 of the larger cuttings with the bigger sized leaves, those all produced roots about 3.5 to 4 inches long, and then also they have some leaf shoots coming out here of the nodes too. So we have 1, 2, and 3. Okay, hopefully you can see. So that is a little leaf shoot coming out there. Here, this one also has it. There's actually 3 out of 4 of these started producing the leaf shoots out of the nodes too, which is awesome. But we have this little container here, so let's check this out now. Okay, let's start with this one. That one has some roots on it. Look at that, 3 little roots, and it's also producing a leaf shoot there too. So that is another good one. And then let's see, let's grab this one. This one's producing another leaf shoot, and it's got a little tiny nub of a root that started. If I left it in there for longer, it would probably keep growing. But I think I'm probably just gonna pot that one up now and just see if it takes. And then this was the very tip of our original cutting, and that one didn't do much of anything. The leaf that was going to be forming, that one just died off, and so that went all brown. And then it does have, right at the node, it does have a couple of little bumps there that are a little bit bigger, but they didn't actually, you know, turn into roots yet. If I left it in there a little bit longer, it might, but there just wasn't a lot of available energy for that very tip of the plant to really take off and do anything. So it looks like as you get towards the tip of the cutting, those are gonna have the harder time producing roots because they have less energy, whereas you get towards the base of your cutting with bigger leaves producing more energy, more photosynthesis action, it seems like those have a much easier time for rooting. So if you are having some trouble, that might be something to consider. Is, you know, the tips you might have not as good luck with, and when you have pieces that are more hardier to work with, that can produce more energy to produce the roots, you might have better luck with that, just in case you're having some trouble with propagating these through the water method. But let's go ahead and get these potted up because they are ready to go. And I am using the same pot here, so let me zoom out a little bit. So when I go to move the stem here, I can feel there is resistance now. And so that has rooted in there, and I just noticed that there is a new leaf shoot coming out from the base here too, which is awesome. I'm gonna get a little messy here. I gotta take some of the soil out. Just a little. I don't want to disturb this guy's roots here, but I'm just kind of around the outer edge here, just so we can fit more in there. Oh my gosh, you guys. Okay, so I don't know if you guys are gonna be able to see in there, but it already has all these new fresh white roots that are like heading for the edge of the pot too. I can't believe how fast that one's growing. Okay, well these are just gonna be tucked in there together, and the roots will eventually end up all intertwined, which is perfectly okay. So I dug just a larger hole here, and I'm just gonna set a couple of the cuttings in here together. Okay, we've got a couple cuttings in there. We're just gonna gently backfill that. Okay, let's take a little soil out the back here. Make a little bit of room there just to insert our next cutting. So I just use the handle of my brush to tuck the roots down in there, get them into position. And we'll backfill there. And then our last 2 cuttings, now these don't really have long roots on them, but there is hope still. They do have nodes, and this one is producing a leaf shoot, so I'm just gonna poke those in there also and see if those do anything. And if those take, then great. If not, no big deal. If they die off, I can always pull them out of the pot, no problem. I think I'm gonna top this off with some worm castings just to give it a little extra boost of nutrients in the soil. So I'm just using this wiggle worm castings, and I'll just take a handful and just sprinkle it over the top surface of the soil. And when you go to water it, it'll water the nutrients down into the soil each time you water. Okay, so now we're just gonna water these in, and I'm using my hand sprayer just because I have these little itty bitty cuttings that aren't, they don't really have roots on them yet. They got some nubs on there. So I'm gonna try not to, since they're just freshly sitting in the soil, I'm gonna try not to disturb that soil too much. So I'm just gonna use my sprayer. So I'll normally water it until I see, oh, there we go. We got a few drops of water coming through the bottom of the pot. Perfect. But yeah, pretty much you just want to keep it moist. Doesn't need to be like soaking, dripping wet every day, but just keep it moist. Don't let it dry out at all with the new little baby cuttings in there, and they should take. And once you start to feel like when you go to kind of move a leaf stem, if you can feel that resistance starting to happen, then you know that they're taking to the soil. So even as cuttings, I like to give these bright indirect light, but no sunlight at all. So no filtered sunlight. I'd like to keep them completely in indirect light, but I want it to be bright enough to where they're still able to photosynthesize and have enough energy to really start producing enough roots. And if you want to give them a little boost of fertilizer, you can do that. So you can use like a liquid fertilizer, just use it at half strength, or if you're already using worm castings, that's perfect. But if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and I love you guys. And also, if you can't reach me on here for any reason, because sometimes I'm already working on the next video, you can always message me on Instagram. So if I'm not here, I'm always there, and you can always comment on Instagram or something. I'll be sure to see your comment there. So all right, guys, I love you. Have an awesome day and have fun growing. I wish you the best success in growing your plants. That's my phone right now. I don't know if you can hear my ringtone, but that's Crocodile Dundee. All right, you guys, I love you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.